Hi, Aurelian.
Lorena?
Yes, how are you? Are you seeing me?
Do you hear me? Wait, try to see.
Can you see me?
Wait, I don't hear you yet.
Okay.
To put my headphones on.
Hello.
Hello, Professor. How are you?
Very well, Rena. Thank you. And you?
Great.
Hello.
Thank you so much
My
for
pleasure.
being with us today.
No, I can't wait. So thank you.
Wait.
Oh, yeah, let's see. Lorena, out of curiosity, what time is it there?
It's 11:52 right now.
Okay. Got it.
So we have a 5 hours pace.
Okay, got it. No, because I was, I would assume it was within working hours, but the thing is, one of my students, for example, she's from St. Martin, and one of her exams was from 9 a.m. and it was an oral exam, and I asked her out of curiosity, like, Diana, what time is it there? And she was like, it's 3 a.m. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's true. That's true. Yeah. We have students that also went to their hometowns, but Brazil is really, and we don't have such differentiation in hours, in the time zones.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're all away in their hometowns, but usually we are in the same time. Only with the north we have a difference of 1 hour, but that's it.
Yeah, that's still manageable. So it's no, I get it. But no, like also for like most of our students, it was also like not a problem. But we have a couple of ones who are in regions where the time difference is very, very big. So yeah, this affects sometimes.
Of course.
So.
Hello, do you hear me this time?
Yes, I can hear you and see you, but I think you cannot see me, Aurelian. Can you see me?
Yes, I see you, yes.
Okay,
yes.
Perfect.
And you are on YouTube as well, so yeah.
Yes, we are all home.
Pardon me, I'll actually be right back. I'm going to go get some extra water for you.
Okay, no. Weather in the Netherlands.
Oh, here everything is okay. We just finished the exam week because we had 2 weeks of exams, and now we are starting the last quarter because our academic year will finish in July. So, so students, we need to communicate a lot with them because we don't meet with them physically. So it's a lot of communication by email, by video. So yeah, but yes. And today is not a very good weather, I have to say. It's raining at this moment. But we had a very long weekend with a lot of sun.
I think Pastor Andre just joined us. Pastor, are you listening to us? Oh, Professor Matthew is there. Hello, Professor. How are you?
Listen. Not to listen. Very right.
See you and listen to you.
Okay. Hi, Lorena, do you see me?
No, I'm
Yes.
not seeing you, Professor Andre, but I'm listening to you.
So I try to. Okay.
E agora eu apareço? Mas cadê a carta? Fica terminando de acordo com o que eu Hello, Lorena, can you see me? Professor Professor Aurelia?
Yes.
Yes.
Professor Andrea? Okay.
Yes, we can. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
We're good, thank you. And you?
Very good.
We're doing our best during this pandemic crisis, right?
Yeah, that's true.
About The Hague, is it too cold up there?
Today a little bit. During the last month, I think that someone wanted to spite us or something like that because it was beautiful weather throughout the month. Quite high temperatures, 16, sometimes 20, which is really high for the Netherlands in April. This is the first day in about a month when the weather went back to normal, as in rainy, dreary, generally depressing.
Okay, that's nice to know. Professor Aurelian, when are you coming? When are you coming to visit us?
Maybe in August, I hope, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
that's very nice.
Professor Alini, are you seeing us?
Hello, I'm trying to figure out the best position here. How are you?
Hello. How are you? So nice
I'm
to
very
meet you.
honored to be here. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Hi, Lini, how are you?
Very nice, thank you.
It's
Good to
nice.
see you, Professor. It's been a
Do you
long
see
time.
me? You see me, Lorena, Aline,
Not yet, Professor.
Alex?
I
Not,
hear you, but
not
we
yet.
cannot see you. We cannot see you. I think you have to turn your camera off when entering the classroom. Try to leave and enter again.
Okay, I'll do it.
Lorena, we could not talk. We prepared. We prepared ourselves to talk to each other before, but we could not. We missed each other, right? So.
That's true. It's so hectic right now, right, Professor? I mean,
Yes. I've
we're
been working all
around
day.
the clock.
Yeah, and I've been.
Your connection is not too good.
Long here. I am in the. I know how can we.
Professor, check your connection, because your voice
Okay.
is blurry.
Connection?
Now it's better. Now I can see you.
Okay. Okay. All right.
This has been live for the last month. So
Every single day. I'm a little bit tired of it.
okay.
I miss people.
Yeah.
I miss to see someone else.
Yeah.
To touch people, hug person. Oh.
Big no.
Brazilians, right, Aline? We love
Sorry,
hugging.
Lorena.
Especially as Brazilians, we love hugging, kissing all the time.
Yes.
Nice.
Well, really.
The weather, I know I listened when I just entered, you were talking about the weather. Here is a beautiful day. And I'm inside every day.
Ah,
True.
Because my camera, it's not working. I don't know what's going on. My microphone, it's okay. I can speak, I can hear, I can see everybody, but
Okay.
some problem with my camera. I try to.
Have you tried a different navigator, Professor? If you're using Chrome, you're using Edge, what are you using?
I think I'm using the application. I will try to change I will close and enter again. Just a minute.
Okay.
So our colleague Sandra also connected.
Because I think
Yes.
she's in.
I'm not really good.
I'm
Elif as well.
so delighted to get to meet her, a Brazilian in the faculty of The Hague. Amazing.
There you go. Wonderful.
Hi.
Hello, Professor. How are you, Sandra?
Hello, how are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Very nice. I was looking forward to it. It's a pleasure.
Okay.
Me as well. We were so excited to get to know that you are in The Hague and work in The Hague University. I was so excited and happy.
Indeed.
Amazing to get to know you personally.
Yes, it's unfortunate that we have to postpone, but I was looking forward to the fair so that we could meet and exchange some ideas about environmental law.
Of course, perfect.
That's very nice.
We are waiting for you here in Brazil at the Welder.
Yeah. Yes, sure. For sure. It'd be a pleasure.
And Lorena and I, we're expecting to go there by the end of the year, by November. I believe we can go there, right, Lorena?
Of course.
We hope so, huh?
We
Yeah.
hope to go in November for
That's
lecturing
right.
the postgrad and
That's
postgrad
right.
courses, and then we will have a Brazilian night. Only this year.
Yes. Yes. And Professor Lelian, since he is already Brazilian, so
Yes,
he's
yes.
yeah.
Yes, of course.
Aurelian, of
Professor.
course, will be in because he has been here twice.
Mm.
And he knows our customs, our practices, right, Aurelian?
Yes, exactly.
Already put good words on my ears about Don Elder. So,
I think we can start. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you everybody to be at this discussion. First time it is I would say live discussion with several professors on the internet from Dumbledore Law School and from the University of Applied Science, from the International Law Program. And it is live streamed at this moment as well on YouTube, so I don't know if some of your students or colleagues can watch it, but you are as well live in Brazil and as well in the Netherlands.
No pressure.
So today we would like to exchange, especially because we had to adapt our legal education, our learning environment due to the coronavirus pandemic. And for this reason, I think it was initiated first by another partner of us from New York. But we wanted to get, I would say, to learn from other practice, because obviously all of us, we had to adapt our learning environments for our students. And some had already exams like us, some will have to teach online and make tutorials, seminars. So of course it would be good to learn from each other in this way. So together tonight, because here it is already the evening, so I have Miss Manea, my colleague, who is alumni coordinator, and as well dealing with the skills and some courses in human rights, international law. As well, my colleague Dr. Kiso Cortez, who has her microphone mute at this moment, but you have met her, I think, last year or 2 years ago. So she's coordinator for commercial law, as well for the Cybercrime Center. We'll have as well Dr. Lewis, Tamara Lewis will join us in a few minutes. She's leaving a meeting at this moment. And Dr. Nascimento Danobrega, so my colleague, who is as well teaching with me on economics. As you know, in place of Axel Cartier, that a lot of you know as well. And during this presentation, of course, we will discuss several points together with you, because you have probably the same, which is about how to enhance the online classroom experience for faculty, staff. As well, we'll talk about how we deal with examination and preparation and administration of exams. And of course, externalations, because that is something we had to adapt as well quickly for the first weeks at least. So I think we can start. Andrea, do you want to start with the first point? Yes?
Yeah. Aurélien, would you be kind enough to share them on screen?
Yes, I will try to do it now. Yeah.
Okay. And once you do, then we can begin to talk. But in the meantime, hello everyone, officially. My name is Andrea Mana, and I'm a staff member at the Hague University of Applied Sciences. To be more exact, I'm a teaching assistant in the legal skills line, but I'm also a year one tutor, a study coach, and an alumni coordinator. And from these various perspectives, I managed to observe the process that we went through in changing, let's say, from in-class delivery of content to delivering content online. So I managed to see different perspectives, but also various students placed in different situations. So to begin with, how this happened for us was the fact that until March 2020, the messages that we were getting from the government were generally that it would be business as usual in the Netherlands. However, in the week prior to 7th of March 2020, the situation was already becoming quite tense, so more and more cases were being reported, and we also had situations with students becoming increasingly concerned. And on the 7th of March, the government announced that from that moment on, all large meetings and activities would be suspended, and that universities would fall likewise under this category. So within the blink of an eye, we were placed in a situation where we had to completely reimagine a large portion of the courses that we were delivering, but also the manner in which we were delivering them. This took a lot of effort. In the beginning, there was a lot of confusion, but with time, we kind of managed to get together and to implement a system that we thought could actually be used to continue offering to our students quality education in this uncertain time. The idea for this conversation actually belongs to one of our partner universities, namely St. John's in New York. And what happened was that I think about a month ago, they contacted us and they said that they wanted to share with their partner universities the experiences that they had went through in implementing online teaching, basically moving the process forward, enhancing experiences and everything like that. And I think that we went into the discussion not really having an expectation of what we were going to hear, but just hearing people discussing how they went through the similar questions, who had faced the exact same problems and uncertainties. Going through the process of discussion and everything like that was in a way incredibly cathartic. Because we realized all of a sudden that no matter in what geographical zone you find yourself, in what academic culture you come from, a lot of experiences have been very, very similar. So coming out of that, we decided that the best way to handle that information was to pay it forward and to reach out to our own partners and try to engage in a dialogue regarding what we noticed and what we learned, but to also hear from you and your experiences. Moving forward in this conversation, we want to really emphasize that we do not mean to portray ourselves as having all the right answers. That is definitely not it. all of us have went through a learning process, and what we mean to share is simply what we identified as best possible solutions, but also potential shortcomings and things that we are still keeping under consideration in order to further improve our educational system and the learning that we can offer to our students. Yeah? Okay. Thank you.
Next.
Aurelien, if we can move to the
Yes.
next topic.
Do you see it?
No, I think we're still on introduction and context in the slides.
Right, I moved it. It's a bit slow sometimes.
Great. Wonderful. Great. So the first, let's say, substantive point or an agenda was enhancing online classroom experience for students and faculty staff. And I think that to begin with, it would be useful to offer you an overview of how decisions were made, were taken, and what was implemented. And with that in mind, I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Elif, who can provide you with more details in this regard.
Yes, thank you very much, Andrea. And also, of course, bem-vindos. Prazer falar com vocês novamente. So I will be, of course, continuing in English. And for us, I think it was quite a sudden switch, even if, like Andrea said, even if, of course, there were shutdowns in Europe. We didn't know when it would happen for the Netherlands, and honestly, we weren't prepared to hear from the government that there won't be any physical education. And when this decision was made, it was quite late at night on a Thursday, and then by the next Monday, we had to start teaching online. And what happened first for us was our management team contacted a couple of us, including myself, and asking if we would like to be the contact point for our colleagues to help them how to continue with digital education, basically. And I found that, of course, quite useful, because that meant that with a smaller group, including the management team, we could have discussions on what kind of digital tools we should be using. And we ended up deciding that given that the time is so little to make the switch, we should just say whichever tool a person feels comfortable with, they should choose that tool for their lectures. And we were a bit lucky, because we already, as a team, we were using Microsoft Teams for communication. We were switching to that system, which meant that we could also use that then to discuss how to do online education, but also to deliver online education itself on the platform. But for example, we had some colleagues that felt more comfortable using Blackboard, or some of them using Skype, and they were more used to giving presentations there. So basically, I think that was a good idea, that we allowed lecturers to be able to choose their own online tool to deliver their lectures. And then we started experimenting quite quickly then, already in the following week. And we also had an area where we could share with each other our experiences, and then we could also offer solutions, and that was, I guess, also quite helpful. And of course, like as a lecturer, it was quite a nervous experience for me the first time around, because I was thinking it will be just like giving a Skype presentation, it will be fine. But it wasn't, because when you were making jokes or comments, you weren't seeing if the students were responsive to it. So you were feeling quite lonely as the lecturer. And in my case, this was a 30-40 people class, and some of them internationals, some of them already not having good internet connection. So we couldn't ask them to keep their cameras on. So basically, we together with the students learned that, for example, they can write on chat if we are asking a yes/no question. And I think that was also a bit adaptation for the students, that they cannot just like put us on the speakers and then go and do their dishes or so on. They had to be actively sitting in front of the computer and responding either by microphone or by chat to our questions. But I would say the first 2 weeks maybe was also, as a lecturer, quite a challenge. And we are looking forward to also hearing your experiences on how you had like maybe different classroom sizes and different teaching methods, and how you combined all of it. Thank you, Andrea.
Pleasure. So to carry on the discussion, what I'd like to talk a little bit is our approaches regarding teaching. What you should know is that at the Hague University of Applied Sciences, students have a number of contact hours with their lecturers. And these can be split most likely into 3 big categories. So number 1, you have lectures, right, which is a pretty similar thing like to lectures everywhere else. Then students have workshops, which are something more akin to a seminar, let's say, where they go more in depth, they do more practical exercises on the content taught during the lectures. And then there is a 3rd category that is in place for year 1 and year 2 students, which are tutorials. Tutorials are basically, let's say, groups. So what we do is that we take year 1 students and pair them up into groups of 15, 13, something like that. So they're kept pretty small. And under the guidance of a tutor who is a faculty member, the students are basically guided throughout the year in their assignments, in their projects, in their professional and academic development. So we also offer that support, let's say. In terms of lectures and workshops, I think with during the first week, because again we were put in a situation that was so extreme all of a sudden, a number of colleagues decided to use narrated slides for their lectures, or at the very least to outsource part of the content in the lectures to narrated slides. The reason being that with time we also noticed that somehow in the online platform method, things just take a little bit more time than they would in real life. It can be due to different things. Your slides can take a bit longer to load, microphone problems, all sorts of things. So then it's useful, it can be a useful tool to outsource some of that content through narrated slides. For the students, this also offers an advantage in the sense that through this method, they can basically learn at their own pace, right? So if the day is not a good day for them to listen to the slides, tomorrow might be, so it's more adaptable to their own learning styles and times. However, we also notice certain drawbacks with narrated slides. For me, what I noticed with the students was that, and I think that never until this point was this so obvious, teaching is a very personal experience. It's very much linked to the people who are doing the teaching and the people who are listening, right? So the student. And narrated slides do not incorporate that aspect. They can be a very impersonal way of conveying content. And relying on narrated slides too much and too often can actually function in such a way that it risks alienating students from the class. So that's some of the things that we noticed. Because of that, we preferred actually having online real-time lectures and workshops. We experimented with different platforms, as Ellie pointed out. Blackboard Collaborate Ultra was the embedded platform in our website. Some colleagues had great experiences with it, especially because it had the advantage of a function called breakout rooms that would allow the students to be split up into mini groups. So they could have discussions, group discussions and group exercises, and you as a moderator could go from one group to another and check on their progress and then return back to the plenary. However, we found it, some of us found it slightly unstable, so that was rather a problem. And one lesson learned for me, for example, was that whenever you're doing teaching, whatever platform you decide to have it on, it is a good idea to have a backup plan. So test it early, and if it doesn't work, make sure that you already kind of have the vision of a plan B. So there is no panic, and there is something that you can revert back to and just organize it from that point on. Some of us, myself included, were very big fans of Zoom. It has a very friendly interface. It's very intuitive. It also offers the advantage that users can log in with their first and last name. So then for students, for example, if you're in a culture that works with more like, less informal, then it's easy to call out their first name, right? Because you see it there. However, I'm sure you're aware that Zoom has come under severe fire recently due to data protection reasons and malware. And we have also been told by the university that we can no longer use Zoom for the teaching process. So that has now stopped, unfortunately. But hopefully at one point they'll be able to solve those problems, and then we can start using it again. For me, for example, some things that we've noticed during the workshops and the lecture were very interesting. As Elif noticed, so it can be kind of awkward in the sense that you find yourself very much alone, right, speaking to a screen. And one thing that I noticed is how big of a difference turning on cameras can make. So, for example, what I do with my tutees and my students in a workshop is that I always tell them that, like, look, your microphone should be turned off while I'm delivering content to avoid, noise disruption. But unless you have a very, very poor internet connection, please turn your camera on. I've noticed an incredible difference in the level of participation of students, right, when they have their camera on, because all of a sudden they see their peers and they see your face, they see everyone. All of a sudden, like it's more of a normal, traditional classroom environment. And for you as a lecturer, this also has a very strong impact, because all of a sudden you're not just speaking to an empty screen, you're speaking to people again. And you can read their facial expressions, see them nodding along. It sort of reinforces what you're doing. And the impact that it can have is really, really colossal. One more thing, and then I'll pass it over to my colleague Sandra. So in tutorials were also very helpful in this regard. Because we work with smaller groups of students, it was easier to touch base and to ask them, how is it going for you? Right? What challenges are you facing? What do you recommend? How would you see this going forward? Things like that. And also, for example, for me, what I did was that I asked my students to hold online presentations every tutorial. So 2 of them would present for 5 to 7 minutes on a topic concerning the EU. And the explanations I gave them was, first and foremost, I think that this is useful because ultimately this quarter you will most likely have at least 1 oral exam. So this is good practice to teach you and to get you used to being under that position where you need to argue in front of the computer convincingly, but also in a more relaxed and approachable manner. Second of all, I also wanted them to go through this experience because I felt it was useful in kind of understanding where the lecturers are coming from with this experience, right? And how is it like to share slides, to come across troubleshooting problems, all sorts of things like that, right? So all of a sudden they were experiencing on a smaller scale what we as lecturers were experiencing as well. And I think this is important because that's how it develops a certain level of empathy, but it also develops their own learning process. Sandra, would you like to continue?
Yes, I will jump in for a few minutes. It's working well, right? Can you see me and hear me? Good. So I will just complement what Andrea mentioned, but from a perspective of someone that has joined the university just a few months ago and suddenly had to adapt to this change. So it was new to everybody, but for me on top, I was new to the institution. So to work with all these changes was very useful to know to whom I could address my questions. So the fact that you have Digi4, as was mentioned before, having a channel that experience can be exchanged was very, very useful. So it was something that even if before you post your doubt, someone has already experienced and put the information, the possible solution to that. also the patience and solidarity of the colleagues is very important, because you are going to actually ask a lot from them, because you'll ask a lot of information. And I was lucky to be in a nice environment on where people were really willing to share and be patient with the new members. So I think this sense of community, it's very important to reflect on the quality of your work. So I would say that the information that you receive, actually the organization of information, and this communication with your teammates is very important. And I think the Microsoft Teams actually facilitate it very much, because they can chat very easily, just send a question like a WhatsApp message, which is very faster. I'm losing my voice, Simpson. So it's very much faster than writing email. So yeah, so that's what I would like to add it. And then I think Tamara is back. It's red, yes. And we can go to Tamara.
Yes, Tamara is online, I think.
Yes, I am. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Tamara Lewis, and I'm really happy to be able to address you from The Hague. And hopefully, maybe at the end, I'll find out more about you, because I wasn't here for the introductions due to another meeting that I was attending. What I would like to do is share my screen now.
Yes.
And as soon as we take down the slides that are there, I'll share a couple of ideas that I have for you regarding how to interact with your students in the smaller settings, which is what I've been doing since we started to do our online presence. So I'm just going to wait until we take down the other content, and I'll put my content up. Great. Thank you.
Yep.
What I'm sharing with you is just a slide, 2 or 3 slides that sort of depict what I experienced when we moved online. So what I want to talk about first is the fact that when we were moving online, we kind of had to change our idea of how we approached talking and interacting and teaching with students. And that's because in general, when we're educators, we're always thinking like of Bloom's taxonomy, or of the more important learning ideas that we have about how to teach. But in fact, when you're in a crisis or emergency situation, it is so important to think about the student's needs. And so I put up here on our slide something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this is something that that educators think about when they're dealing with their students after a trauma. And so I thought it would be useful just to show this, because it gives you a bit of an idea of what's on your students' minds. And so as educators, when we're trying to think, oh, let's do something that's going to really engage our students, we want them using higher order thinking skills, well, we have to scale it back when we're in this situation after something like COVID-19 and people being confined to their homes, because many of our students are thinking only about their physiological needs as well as their safety. And so as you can see on this pyramid, if students are in the bottom part of this pyramid, and that's where a lot of our students really are, it's going to be very hard for us to talk to them about other things that aren't related to what's really on top for them. So our students are down here a lot. So in the first weeks right after COVID, that's exactly where they were. And so when interacting with them, I had to change the focus away from teaching to something else. And I'll show this slide to you. Because when we're doing anything in online, we have to think about this, which is something that we don't usually do in face-to-face thinking. And so it's the social presence idea. And that's the fact that when you're teaching online, you have to think about somehow getting a community built with your students. And it's a community that's not based on you being together in a room. Instead, it has to be based on the fact that you're reaching out to each other through the media that you're using, but you're recognizing also that you're still forming some sort of a community. And so with my students in the tutorials, we spend the beginning part of our tutorial, before we talked about any business, just having every single person in the tutorial tell what was going on with them. And they just shared what was happening. So I had students who literally had to try to leave to go to their countries because their parents told them, you've got to come back here. We don't want you in the Netherlands during the confinement. So they talked about the fact that when they arrived at the airplanes, to get on the airplanes, the people that were on the airplanes were dressed in these suits like what you see on television when they're getting ready to come and take you away to put you into an insane asylum. And so they were talking about the way they felt, which was that they were met by these people that were completely covered and told to get on planes, and they felt like, really insecure. And then when they arrived in their country, they had to be in quarantine for 14 days. So students are traumatized when they go through something like that. And so when you let your students tell you what's going on in their lives, like I need, some of my students are like, I would really like to get some paracetamol. I feel ill, but the fact is the stores are not selling paracetamol anymore. They don't have any more left in stock. So students are describing how they feel and what types of real world challenges that they have at the beginning of the session, so we can all sort of recognize where people are and maybe get a better understanding of why they might not be able to completely be concentrating on our conversation, or why they might not be able to submit their work on time. Some of my students have low bandwidth, so they can't really be in a video conference like this. So we have to find other ways to get the information to them. So these are just considerations, and there's something that you don't normally do in a face-to-face setting because you can already sort of intuitively know and understand these things. But in this setting, you have to go one by one with your students, talk to them, and try to really see what's happening with them on a personal basis. And then the final thing that I want to say to you before I turn this back to my colleagues is that, in fact, one of the most important things about the fact that we're all communicating now with technology and with these computers is that we can sometimes feel a bit cold because it doesn't feel like we have real contact. And that's why I want to put one more thing up here, which is that when you're actually having your interaction with students, please give it a human touch. And it's really something that all online educators have to learn, and it's called humanizing technology. So you have to make technology become human, and you have to put a human touch into your course so that students recognize that there's a person behind the video and that person really cares about you, and that behind all of these tools that we have that are technological tools, that there's still a person there with a heart and with a brain and who cares and wants to know that they're doing well. So that's all I'm going to say, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that we can see each other again better.
Good. Thanks, Tara. Lorena, on your side, would you like to share any of your experiences on this topic? Would you have any questions for us?
Yes, I'd like to share some experience, and I'll be sharing with you some slides as well. So I'll share with you my page just a second. Let me see. I don't know where.
It's okay. Take your time. I apologize in advance that we just went on talking and everything. Obviously, we have a lot to say. We're very dedicated to the topic.
No, but that's perfect because if we talked all along, it will be, really hectic around here. So it was good to listen to you individually. Let me see. I can find here my screen. Here.
Yeah, it's coming on now.
Yeah? Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'd like to speak to you in the time I have about virtual teaching for undergraduates in crowded classrooms. I am teaching, I have classes right now at Don Wilder of first years, of students of the first year of law. And my classrooms are crowded. And when I mean crowded, I mean 50 students or more inside a class. So pretty much what Professor Aleph and Professor Andrea told us, the first thing when we shifted for online classrooms, for virtual platform, is that feeling that I became blind and deaf because I cannot see them. They enter classrooms with their cameras turned off, and as well, they do not interact vocally. So those perceptions I could perceive at the moment that had huge impact on my teaching methodology. It's quite different. So I decided to get in touch with my team, with my group, with my class, and ask them to team up. So I decided to divide these crowded classrooms in several groups, and they sent me their names, their group names. In that way, I could better identify students with academical difficulties. Why could I do that? Because I told them that they would be challenged during the whole class. So I would establish several challenges during classes, and they would have to be ready to respond to those challenges because they would be graded and evaluated both individually and collectively. So students, they got to understand that getting to class unprepared, it would have not only impact on their individual grading, but it would also have impact on their collective grading, on their group grading. So I tried to give them that idea of responsibility, of collective responsibility, as well as individual responsibility. So what was I trying to avoid? Dividing the class and challenging them all the time during the class. A challenge that would be graded was, of course, absenteeism, because what we are proposing at the Wilder is not what online courses propose. When we buy online courses on the net, we can have the comfort and flexibility to choose whatever time we want to watch the classes, to choose how we participate. It's not that we want to propose at the Wilder. We want to reproduce in a certain way the physical environment we had to virtual platforms. So they need to understand and to prioritize that they had to be present, and not only present, but they have to stop being so passive. They have to interact either vocally and with their cameras turned off, but they had to make their participation because they would be graded all the time during class. And also I was trying to avoid disengagement, and disengagement not only in terms of passivity, but also in terms of getting to class unprepared, because I could see that when students are in virtual platforms, they feel more comfort. They feel that they are in the comfort zone. They are not inside class. If they do not want to appear, they won't appear. If they do not want to talk, they won't talk. And that is a feeling of comfort, of being in a comfort zone that gives you some false perception that you can get into class unprepared. And that was something I was trying to avoid. When I was trying to design these challenges, I decided to give the challenges without instructions. And that was really important for my empirical analysis in this 1.5 months that we are on virtual platforms. Because once I do not give instructions, I can give them the opportunity to go wide. So they can show me the pathways and their resources when trying to solve problems, and I can understand them better, even being away with them. I have to stress to you, professors, that we started our academic semesters in February. So I had little time to get to know my students physically. So I think you are in the last term in your academical year, but here in Brazil we are in the beginning. So the students who are coming from college, from schools, from high school to me, and entered now a university, I didn't know them at all. So I'm trying to understand them virtually, how they are, how they think, how they reason. So that kind of challenge was really important. So in class, we have in each class at Dom Helder, they last 1 hour and 40 minutes. All our faculty is trained about methodologies, teaching methodologies. We are a Jesuit institution, so we follow Loyola's methodology. But of course, we have to make some adaptations to this methodology. In the first 5 minutes, we make a retrieval practice just to recollect things that have already been given, that have already been discussed in class. And afterwards, I give them 20 minutes of new theories. We discuss new theories, but these new theories are intercalated with 3-minute challenges. So they know they will have a very rapid challenge, and with establishing this time limit, 3 minutes, this chronometer, I can see that they react much more promptly and that they feel some kind of pressure in interacting and in responding. So it gave me some positive aspects on that. What I learned about the challenges empirically as well is that I do not have to follow a learning asymmetry. I do not have to follow a grading, a layer of difficulty in my challenges. So first, I do not need to put a very easy challenge and then an intermediate one and then a difficult one. If I do it backwards, if I do it, for example, first a very difficult challenge and then a very easy one and then an intermediate one, I can figure out students better, because there are students who deal with complex cases very easily. And on the other hand, when having contact with easy challenges, they have difficulty. So I get to picture them and their reasoning better when I do not follow a symmetrical pattern of challenge. Of course, what Professor Tamara told us, it was really important. Contextualizing challenges gave me also this opportunity to know them logically, especially with COVID-19. So when we talk about a problem, a challenge in class, always contextualize. They can give me their own impression, what they are going through, and this was very important for me to get to know my student. And in the last 3 minutes, of course, we make another retrieval in the class about what has been discussed and propose another challenge for the subsequent class. What I did outside of classrooms was, in physical classroom, I gave my email and I gave them the responsibility to every contact through email. I would respond in 24 hours at most. But I saw that email was really, was really distant from them. So now in virtual platforms, I decided to create a WhatsApp group for every and each class. I know this is complex. I know this demands more workload, but I did it in an experimental way, and creating a WhatsApp group for every and each class gave me more efficiency in passing formal information, in passing instructions, and also gave me the possibility to get individual contact with my students. So those students who are timid enough to participate, to interact vocally, they know my cell phone and they know how to get contact directly with me in my personal WhatsApp and to ask for their doubts. So in that way, I can figure them out much better. So they asked for individual tutoring. And also, we have a Moodle platform at Dom Helder. You may as well have, of course. And after each class, I put some reading material. I post a short reading material to complement what we have discussed. This material has to be really short, not long at all. Rereading and reading long material do not stick. It's something that is not working here at Dom Helder, at least for undergraduates of first year. So I put like 10 pages, 12 pages at most for them to complement their knowledge. And previously, before each class, I also post a very short material about what is going to be given for them to show up prepared for classes and prepared for the challenges I will propose. With those initiatives, I also had to establish more work for us professors, for me, because they were getting in touch individually a lot. I was receiving about 100 WhatsApp messages a day about doubts. So I could group the doubts and find out similar and concurrent things and schedule some clear your doubts classes. Of course, those classes were very short, just to clear the doubts. They got to the class ready to ask, and it lasted about 15-20 minutes. It was really, really good to have those clear doubts classes. So, ending my participation, I got some empirical metrics and jury metrics, because I could see very clearly that at Don Wilder, especially in first year, students, they had that idea that virtual classes was like online classes, those online courses that you can buy on the internet, and it's not. I mean, I don't want them to feel comfortable. I don't want them to feel flexible enough to choose when they are going to watch class. I want their presence. I want them in the class with me. I want them interacting. So, of course, we know that agency and responsibility is very important, but there is the need to have at least some control of it. So having some control, it gave them a positive idea about virtual classes. So they had some biases about virtual classes in the beginning. They had mental objections, psychological obstacles that they had to overcome to understand that although not in a physical environment, the environment we were proposing at the Wilder was quite similar to the physical one, that I would be there for them, that we would have lots of activities, lots of evaluation during classes, and they had to understand this first in order for me to get to them the juridical bias they have, to the reasoning. So I mean, I had to face a double-leveled obstacle. First, getting to know the barriers they had about virtual learning, and then getting to know their juridical biases, their cognitive biases about reasoning, about reaching the proper and the most adequate solutions for the challenges I was proposing. So pretty much that was my participation in today. And one thing Professor Tamara enforced, and it was really important, is that agency is different from solitude. So I was feeling that if they had that idea about online courses, and they have the flexibility and comfort, they would feel more lonely. They would feel more isolated, and that was not what we propose here at Don Wilder. So I want them to feel supported all the time. So they can reach me through WhatsApp, they can reach me for clear doubts, they can reach me on Teams, they can reach me all the time they want. I am available. Of course, for us, it means that we are working around the clock, but I mean, it's a way to respond to them in a human way, that I am here for them every time they need. And so that was the challenges and the shortcomings I've been going through for this month and a half, and dealing with cognitive bias and trying to overcome them with my students of 18, 19 years old. They are really young. So thank you very much, Professor. That's pretty much it. And please share with me your thoughts about very young students as well, because I'm really curious about what you think and what you have been doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorena. Lorena, could I please ask you a couple of questions?
Of course.
So you talked about the way you held a class, and then you would sometimes intersect different elements, right? So a lecture moment and then a sort of challenge moment for about 3 minutes. Could you maybe give me like a more concrete example of how that challenge moment would look? So what kind of question would they get, or how would it work?
Yes, so I have 60 students in class, right? So those challenges, they are a question, of course. They are a proposition. So a proposition about a theory we have been discussing in the last 20 minutes of class. So of course that this question demands previous knowledges about other classrooms, about their high school experience, their background as well. But I really propose either a problem or an abstract question for them to solve. And of course, they will participate individually because there's no way to participate collectively. They cannot discuss with their group about the answer. But by participating individually, they are being graded both individually and collective. So that was important. So they are very worried about their participation because they know they will impact in their colleagues' grading. And also what was really important is that we tried to make a competition amongst the teams we formed, the groups we formed. And this was not a negative aspect. This was a very positive aspect because once a person that I asked about a theory, about a proposition, about a hypothesis to develop, he would not have the answer so quickly. Others would want to complement it right away. Others want to participate it because they know that by participating, they would grade not only individually, but they would grade positively for their group. So in that way, in the last class, for example, I have 60 students. So in the last class, I could see that 55 participated vocally. So this was a major gain for me when 55 were participating and engaging and asking to participate. So Professor, please let me complement what the other colleagues said. So this interaction was amazing. And I could establish that having those challenges, but very quick ones, because if I had a longer time, I think it would not work so properly. Having a chronometer, fixing the time, they have to respond very quickly, and they show me the way of thinking, and having these broad challenges. So a hypothetical question, I could see how they think, and they are showing me marvelous pathways, marvelous resources that I could never think about it myself. And they are showing their knowledge with me. I'm learning with them as well. And they're becoming more interested because they have their participation in class. I'm not just they are talking and they are passively. They are not. They are interacting. They are trying to complement. They are asking questions. When they cannot respond to a challenge, they ask questions. And by those questions, I can picture them out better. I can see their difficulties, and then we complement each other. I'm having a really good, feedback with them with that.
I really like the idea of a reward system, right? Because, for example, in the law program, I feel like this is not really a thing. So students are only graded for their assignments, they're only graded for the exam, but they're not graded for their in-class participation. So I come from Romania, for example, and there we always had this thing like an extra point in the exam if you were really, really active. And I think that now more than ever in the online teaching system where hiding, let's say, becomes that much easier, right? I think that a reward system is a good way to kind of encourage more participation, but also encourage a maintenance of participation, the ones that are usually active to begin with, right?
Yes.
So I like that idea. Like, it sounds very, very interesting. Thank you, Lorena.
Yeah, you're welcome. And as well, participating in class, not through only chat, because of course we are using Team as well. But chat is like that participation that you are exposing yourself in a way, exposing your doubt to everybody. And when you have a challenge, you set up a first motivation, an external motivation. So I do not need them. I am trying to get to their internal motivation through an external incentive. So giving a challenge, they engage in that challenge, And from that, I can infer their doubts, so they do not need to expose their doubts on chat blatantly. So I can infer from the challenges, and that is helping me a lot and helping the group to get to know each other, because we had only 1 month of class before shifting to virtual environment. So they don't know each other as well. They are not so solidified as a class. So that was really important.
Professor Karina, can I ask you also a question?
Of course, Professor.
You were referring to the readings that you give them that you said are not extensive. And I was wondering, are you thinking of having some after class and before the next session interaction where students might interact in another way? So maybe not with readings, but something else, because it seems like between your class, like how frequently are your classes?
Yes, we have some disciplines we meet 3 times a week. Other disciplines we meet twice a week. So I mean, we have a very I think often encounters weekly, but still, when I told them about the possibility of having clear your doubt classes, that was a big hit for the class. So when once they have my WhatsApp, my personal cell phone, they are reaching individually all the time, because they are very worried about their grades in class, about the challenges I'm going to propose ever in each class. So they are very worried about their learning. That was a positive side of establishing those challenges. And they asked me all the time for clear your doubt classes. And then I can make those clear your doubt classes even through WhatsApp. So I've made ones today with 4 students. So we can enter WhatsApp, we 4, and for 15 minutes we discussed about questions they have, extra classes, extra the calendar, and they express their doubts, I clear their doubts, and they feel ready for the next class. So of course the material I post on Moodle platform just before and after classes, they help, but I'm getting to understand that they need extra contact with me, and establishing these extra hours is really important, because they're all asking all the time for extra hours. We are going to have a holiday here in Brazil on Friday. It's the 1st of May, and they asked me already if we can have extra classes on May 1st, clear your doubt classes, because they are worried about the challenges, and they're worried about exams as well. They're worried about their learning. So that's the positive aspect I saw that was a major hit, to get to know my students, to check if they are learning. So I can check if they are learning all the time, not only during class, 2 or 3 times a week, but also during the clear doubts, and also during my WhatsApp contact with them individually. They record audios for me all the time. Teacher, Professor, I did not understand this. I did not understand this. Could you please answer me? So I record audios as well. So we are always in contact. So I believe that shifting to virtual platforms gave me much more contact with my students, because in physical environment, I would have physical contact with them 2 or 3 times a week, but they would only have my email. I would of course respond to that, but they would have my email, and now they have my phone. Now they have my support 24 hours a day. There are sometimes I wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and I have 100 WhatsApp messages to respond. Of course, this is a workload, but I am responding, and I think they are perceiving that they are being supported psychologically and theoretically, juridically. What is the most important thing?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Lorena.
So I think that Professor André is going to expose now for us about his experience.
Yes, thank you. I will show you some slides I prepared to present today. Let me see if I can do it. this one. Just present. So, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to greet the professors of the Hague University of Applied Sciences. It's a pleasure to meet you all. I would also like to greet my colleagues at Dom Helder Law School. My name is André de Paiva Toledo. I'm a professor of international law, and I do research on topics related to environmental, international law, international law of human rights, and the law of the sea. With regard to my contribution today, knowing that my colleagues will talk about aspects related to teaching, I decided to talk about the coordination of legal research groups in time of coronavirus crisis based on colleagues and my own experience. At Dom Helder Law School, we have three kinds of legal research groups. The first one, graduate research groups, then scientific initiation groups, and then third, moot-court groups. The first one, the graduate research groups, are formed by students from master's and PhD courses. Although the group has a general topic, each researcher proposes his individual project. Thus, each researcher writes an individual paper. The collective meetings, here, the purpose of a collective meetings is to create a collaborative environment in which the researchers can discuss with colleagues in order to take advantage of experience of others. The social isolation has caused problems to graduate research groups. At first, social isolation could favor introspection, concentration, but actually in social isolation, researchers, especially those who have young children staying at home, have a lot of difficulty to find time to research. Considering that most graduate students lead the professional life together with the academic life, considering that some of them live in other cities, there are students whose time for research is normally shorter in relation to students exclusively dedicated, who are a minority in the graduate student body of our institution. In the coronavirus crisis, the time for research, which was already short, became even shorter. On the other hand, the positive point, as most of students have a job in the home office system, this has facilitated their presence in the virtual meetings, which are done by the Microsoft Teams platform. It's the same in relation to the students living abroad. So they do not need to travel to college to enjoy the meetings. Therefore, I think that the professor objective here concerning to graduate research groups is to use the collective meetings, the virtual collective meetings, to focus on each individual's needs, trying to maximize the little time available. With regard to scientific initiation groups, they are formed exclusively by undergraduate students, selected by the professor to have their first experience in legal research. Once selected, each member must propose an individual research project within the general topic of the group, obviously. Students feel normally, in this case, insecure during the social isolation, especially those doing research for the first time and who need to adapt to a new system of mandatory disciplines, like Lorena said. In this sense, social isolation becomes a variable that discourages work. Since the collective meetings are always recorded and made available to group members, their presence in these meetings occurs less frequently than before. This is a problem. For this reason, in my opinion, the professor's concern should be to provide more intensive and individualized assistance to members of the scientific initiation group, even if he or she needs to schedule more meetings. So, the third and last kind of legal research group is formed by moot court groups. These groups are formed also exclusively by undergraduate students, selected by the professor to be in the college team that goes to a specific competition. As it's not a graduate research group or a scientific initiation group, members of the moot court groups do not carry out an individual research project. On the contrary, the work is always collective, because the competition requires just one written paper and oral presentation of conclusions. Therefore, the result of the moot court group's work is not evaluated by number of papers, but by its performance in the competition. Unlike what happens with the graduate research groups and the scientific initiation groups, the meetings, the virtual meetings of the moot court groups consist of a division of tasks among the students in view of a common result. Social isolation is a factor that hinders the collective work because it depends very much on team spirit. It's essential to keep students motivated in this case. The researchers establish a closer relationship with the professor, seeing themselves as protagonists of the group. For this reason, for this special reason, the professor's concern must be to improve the team's spirit, keeping open the channel of debate, not only between him or her and the students, but especially among the students themselves. Finally, in relation to these moot court groups, the third kind of legal research groups we have here at Noel, the law school, the cancellation of competitions is an important issue. In this case, the opportunity of performing the oral phase remotely is very interesting, but unfortunately, it's not always given. This opportunity is not always given, unfortunately. As long as social isolation persists, the organization of virtual competitions, I think it's extremely important to maintain the moot court groups, but this depends on the organization of competitions. So, as a conclusion, a general conclusion of my short presentation, regarding graduate research groups, it's necessary for the professor to reduce the number of collective meetings, but taking this restricted time to focus on individuals' demands. Regarding scientific initiation groups, it's necessary, the contrary, it's necessary to reduce the number of collective meetings, I think, that's my opinion, and to increase the number of individual meetings. And finally, regarding moot court groups, it's necessary for the professor, the coordinator, to maintain the number of collective meetings, these virtual collective meetings, encouraging virtual meetings among the researchers themselves in order to keep this team's spirit alive. So I try here to make a comparison between these three kinds of groups. I thank you for attention, and so that's it. I invite my colleagues to keep going the explanation, but it's what I'd like to talk to you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Andre, if I may for a second, please. So I found your observations on attendance very interesting, because even in non-research circles, let's say, like, so normal classroom experiences such as lectures, seminars, and tutorials, generally the observations have been that attendance was lower than when we had in-class physical classes, right? So, for example, this was noticed particularly with lectures and workshops, in the sense that the students who would always attend, who would always be active and everything, generally maintained that level of attendance. But then other students seemed to just kind of disappear. Let's say,
Yes,
so it
yes.
melt into, and the question was, what can we do about that? In tutorials, please.
Sorry, no. I'm sorry, I interrupt.
No worries. I only wanted to add one more thing. In tutorials, we noticed kind of mixed results. So some tutor groups, for example, the attendance level stayed the same, right? So 50 people, and still every tutorial you're going to get 15 people. If someone cannot make it, they will send an email. And I was also one of the people that was fortunate enough that this was the case. So even when this thing started. But I've had other colleagues who went through different experiences, in the sense that once the tutorials shifted to online, many students, or some students at least, just seemed to disappear. So again, generally we notice this less in smaller groups, but you're right, in larger groups, the larger the group is, the lower the attendance tends to be.
So here the groups are formed about 8, 9, 10 students. So we are not a huge class like Lorena said about her challenge. So at the first time, I thought that to record the meetings was not a good point, that we could change this strategy, not recording and not making them this record available to them, just a way to force, to oblige the participation, the presence. But at the end, I concluded it's not a very good option, because these students, they are already in the weak position, because they are far from the school, far from the college, they are far from the professor. And I think if we make it even more difficult, I think it will be worse. I think they will abandon the group. Yeah. So I don't have an answer to this question. I think it's a very good question, and I'm at this moment, because I'm working in this situation about 45 days, 1 month and a half, and I don't find yet an answer to this challenge. It's a problem, because I think, especially related to the scientific initiation group, because this is the first experience in research that these students, undergraduate students, have. They see normally they see the research group as another discipline. So they see the professor as a center of the research group, so they don't have to participate a lot. They are just look, to watch, and to learn. And that's, I think, it's the most difficult aspect of what I said. It's related to the scientific initiation group. But I unfortunately, I didn't find yet an answer how to keep them close to us, and to give them this responsibility to deal as a group member, not as an ordinary students. That's, I think, it's the most problem. To give them the conception and the possibility to understand that they are a member of a research group. It's not a regular student who are obliged to go to a mandatory discipline. I think this is a very good important challenge we have to face.
I would like to address that, because I also supervise students that are working on thesis, and of course it's not exactly the same, because it's not like I'm the researcher and then they're just part of a group, but I think that there's some practices that you can employ to make your community so that it's less of, oh, you're the one that's in charge, but that they see themselves as part of the community and then they can contribute. And one of the things I think is visualization. So that's a technique that I think you might want to use. You mentioned that in your school you use Microsoft Teams. Is that true?
Yes, Microsoft Teams platform.
Teams has a function called whiteboard, and whiteboard can be extremely useful.
Whiteboard.
Yeah, if you want to sort of visualize your research process and where you are. And the advantage of using the whiteboard is that it has sticky notes, it has text possibilities, but it also has writing, whatever you like to use. And what you do is you can visualize what it looks like on your team. So where are you, and then where are your team members in the process, and what are they supposed to be doing, and what are you doing? And then everyone sort of sees it up there, and then they can identify themselves as part of the team. But the great thing is that you can brainstorm in there. So what are we doing now, and where do we go next, or where are we in our research? What are our research questions that we're looking at? Who's doing what kind of what kind of research findings have we made? And the whiteboard allows you also to actually post your documents. So let's say you found some really interesting stuff there, you can post it inside of the whiteboard. And one of the things you can ask students to do is actually take a look at something. So even if they don't understand it as well, ask them, what are your opinions about a certain document that you posted there? And ask them to post sticky notes, for example, their ideas about the document. So then you're engaging them. And the good thing about it is it's them. So they don't have to do it exactly at a certain time. They can do it when it's useful for them or when it there are some commercial possibilities. I don't know like how certain groups feel about it, but like if you like that kind of whiteboard experience, there are other sort of collaborative things like that in real time where you can have boards like that and have all of your projects and all of the stuff you're working on those boards. And I will put into the chat the name of a couple of them that I've been using that work really well with for this kind of sort of visualization of what you're doing. So one of them is called Mila Note. I've just put it into the chat, and then the other one is called Mural. And so they're really good collaboration tools where you can visualize your project, where it's at, and then also get comments from people on your
Professor Tamara and Professor Andre, I'd like just to ask about whiteboard because we are using a Teams platform, and also for my colleagues at Dom Helder, we have this whiteboard function, of course.
We don't. I don't know. That's not. I was just saying that. Thank you, Professor. But I don't know what is whiteboard. I don't know how to
function that, Professor. And I tried to use it several times, Professor Tamara, as well. You probably know the answers better for us because we have to write in the virtual pencils the program gives to us. We don't we can type, and the fact that we can type for me was a major shortcoming about whiteboard. Because of course I can share documents and we can add it together.
Keep talking. I'm going to try to show you how I use it, but I have to see if I can find it on my own because I'm using a different computer from the normal one that I'm on. But it has an online platform, so it's not just available in that way. So I'm going to see if I can find the online platform, and then I might share it with you and see what's going on, so you can see what I do with it.
Perfect. When I saw we had to draw cancel, it was quite difficult for me because of rapidness. So if I could type on whiteboard, that would be perfect. That would be perfect.
Yeah, I'm gonna see, because I'm gonna go into one that I just created, and then I'll share that I created. It's not gonna be, well, you don't mind because you're a Jesuit university. It's most likely gonna be religious because I use it for my Sunday school students. But I'll show you what they do on it. Second.
So anyway, I thank you the suggestion. I will, because we are working with this Microsoft Team platform. So this month. So I'm just using the regular tools. I don't know everything it's possible to do. And I have noted here whiteboard, sticky notes, mural, and I will look for how these stuffs work. And I thank you very much, Professor Tamara Rios, for these suggestions.
No worries.
With the research group. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
So I don't know. I think it's now Professor Aline will talk. Aline Oliveira.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Professor André. But Professor Tommy wants to show your screen now or later?
You can go ahead, and if I come up with some stuff to show you when you're finished, I will then do it.
Okay. Professor André, would you please stop sharing your screen? So
I don't know how to do this. I'm trying. Sorry, I'm trying to.
It's okay, no problem. I think you go in the
stop
screen. Yes, there is a button, pause sharing or stop sharing.
So
Tamara, your microphone is on.
I don't find this here.
The same way you did it before.
Yes.
When you start sharing.
Now I found. Yes. Stop sharing. Sorry.
No, thank you. It's okay. Yes, now you can see mine, right?
Right.
Okay. Good afternoon. Officially, my name is Aline Oliveira. I'm showing you this invitation here to tell you that I'm not from the law school. I'm staff actually from ENGIE, which is a school partner of Dom Helder. We share the same place, the same methodology, but the difference is ENGIE is focused on engineering and Dom Helder is focused in the law studies, right? So my contribution will maybe different from my colleagues, but I hope it's still helpful for you, okay? What I teach chemistry. I teach chemistry for the freshmen, for the first year students, and they are very, very young, as Lorena mentioned very well. And so I face some difficulties, some special challenges, including, for example, that they don't meet very well and they don't know each other. So I'm trying to develop a sense of community among them and with me also. And I'm also in charge of extension programs, so I hold some seminars or complementary studies. And nowadays, we are trying to shift everything to the virtual mode. It's not easy, and we are doing it step by step. I'm going to talk about some strategies I'm using in my classes. I've been working for like 6 weeks or 5 weeks, trying my best to find a solution for those big challenges we're facing. Of course, I failed a lot, and I keep asking my students to tell me, to send me feedbacks for me, because it's important to understand how this group work better, how my classes could be better than in the present form, because now it's what we have. In the first couple weeks, I thought my biggest thought was I need to survive, so I'm gonna bring everything I planned for the presential classes, and I'm gonna do the same in front of the computer, but the result was very bad. It did not work because online classes are very different. We need to use a different methodology. And what all the professors, but Professor Elif and Professor Tammy said a lot about the students. My students are not well equipped, and it's clear most of them don't have a computer to use. They attend my classes on a cell phone, and most of them don't have a proper internet connection. So they are not able to download materials, or sometimes they are not able to access an activity. So I'm trying to give access to everyone, understanding what are the specificities for each one. It's a very hard work because I have lots of students, but I'm trying to be closer. And I'm also using the WhatsApp group, and it's helping a lot. So we need to have a fast adaptation, and we are competing with a lot of distractions, right? So when I'm teaching, sometimes I feel lonely, as you said. Sometimes I feel that I'm teaching to my wall because I have a wall here behind the computer, and it's sad. So I'm trying to give them more activity during the time we're together. We meet in teams around twice a week in the regular time classes, which are 2 hours each one. And then in this time, what I do is to give them opportunity to express themselves. So my mission as a professor, as an educator right now, I believe is more than just give them chemistry knowledge. Because chemistry, they can find on internet. I always tell them that Google knows chemistry much better than me. I'm here to facilitate their learning. And in this very sensitive moment, I understand that I also need to motivate them. They cannot give up. It's not time to be sad. I understand that most of them are isolated, same as me. And sometimes I feel sad, I feel lonely, but I cannot be sick because of it. And this is what I need them. I need to, so every class, I think that I need to smile to them, you know. They need to see my expressions, because it humanizes the process, as you said before. It's very important. And when I think about my classes, I keep thinking about it every day. I need to innovate, and I need to reinvent my job. You know, reinvent is not just do the job again, but reinvent myself, because I'm not the professor that goes to a present class face-to-face to students. Now I'm an online teacher, and this is different. I did not plan that. I was not prepared, of course, none of us, but it's I'm looking at it as a very good opportunity to develop my skills. And I also want my students to do the same. So I'm exercising a lot of empathize and to understand their moments. So I'm always open to listen to everything they want to say me. And sometimes they tell me very individual things. For example, someone in their family which is sick, it's happening nowadays, because I think they miss the human contact. They miss someone to talk. They miss someone to listen to them. So when we open this contact, we still have to deal with different situations, but it's okay. We're learning together, and I want to give them the sense of community that we are here for them. And the long life learning, I think it's something very important right now, because I'm not sure if it happens with you, but some professors, including me, think that because we have studied a lot, we know everything, we don't need to learn anything more, but we do. very, very big opportunity to learn a lot nowadays, how to deal with different situations, with crises, with different methods of teaching and learning. And I'm trying different strategies. This is a graph which is much more illustrative, okay? This is not data actually, but I made it with some other professors. And what we can observe. And in the green area is when we just give them content, the same as we do in the face-to-face class. So when I give them and I keep talking about an hour and a half, imagine listening to me with this voice an hour and a half around 10 p.m. and it's a very hard. I understand that. I wouldn't think the same if I was a student. So it's during the time the student is not interested anymore, and he or she will probably watching TV, playing a video game while they listen to me. So I started to understand that when I add some videos inside my talking, inside my class, or online activities, they are much more engaged. They feel more present and they start to dialogue with me during the class. But the best scenery, the best scene that I've reached is the red. It's represented here as the red area. Is when I use interactive games and when I solve exercises online. And here is something interesting because I don't like games very much. But I know and I am sure that my students do because they are of a different generation. They are very young. And this is something that challenge them, that instigate them, that force them to do something different. So I'm using it a lot. And this is what I want to talk about very quickly. I'm doing and experiencing flipped classroom. And what do I do? My students are from engineering, so they don't like reading very much. So mentioning Lorena, if I send them a 10 page paper to read, they won't read. I'm sure about that because sometimes they don't read 2 pages or 1 page. So I'm sending them short video content because I believe that our virtual meeting is very important, of course, but the online mode allows us to give the student a little bit of freedom to use their own pace and their own to adequate everything to their agenda. I know my students, most of them, not most, but some of them are still working, so they need to face, like, of course, the risks, and they are scary lots of time, but sometimes, and during the lunch period they can watch a video, or during the traffic they can watch a video. So I send them very small content, and when we are together online I solve exercises and I use interactive games to do it. My videos, a specific thing that I learned in these weeks is that they need to see me during the video. When I use just the slides, they don't look to it. They have to see me. And I use, for example, the PowerPoint recording, which is just a slide. When I appear and I explain the slide for them, it works. But how my students, they have limited internet. I'm trying a different strategy. I'm using Loom, which is a website. It's a software free and it's online. So, and then it's very easy to use. So I record my classes. I record videos at Loom using the same presentation, for example, this one. And then I send them the link so they can access like a YouTube link, and it's much easier and it's for free, so it's getting very well. The second thing that I'm doing is that I'm solving exercises online. So the flipped classroom means that they will gonna study alone by themselves, and then when we are together, I'm gonna solve the problems and talk about the difficulties, about the doubts. So in my videos, I give the essential. If they need any other information, they are.
Aline, you broke.
Connection.
Yeah.
Great.
It looks like her internet is having problems, connectivity problems.
Yes. Let me try to chat with her.
When I look at this mathematical formula, I miss chemistry very much now.
I feel like I'm reliving past traumas.
No, I love that. She and I are going to have to be in contact with each other because I want to talk to her about gaming because I'm going to be taking a course in a couple of weeks about that.
Oh, she's back. You're back. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I was here?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay. Thank you, Lorena, to tell me. Okay. I solved the exercises, use the pen table and the digitized table because they can see me writing and they can read what I'm doing at the same time that I speak to them. This is a real class, okay? This is not the most beautiful thing, but it's very helpful, it's very useful. And the same as I used to do in the board. So it's much easier. Of course, my subject involves lots of calculations. I'm not sure if it's gonna be very useful for you, but even to write a test and then mark some parts, the most important things, it's very useful. And the third thing is the gamification. I'm using a lot Socrative, and I reached the best results using Socrative. I don't know if you know that yet, but it's very interesting. I understand in these weeks that when I give my students a paper like this, with lots of questions, exercises, they can't even look at it because it's not interested, it's just black and white. It does not work as the same it used to work when we were in the presence form of classroom. So when I give them the exercises in a gamification platform, first of all, it's easier to see, it's colorful, it looks much more interesting. Other than that, I can see how many students are with me. You can see under the graph 8 for 11 students. It was a very small group, but it worked very well. We can talk, okay, Tammy, it will be a pleasure. And I can also see the proportion of students who are marking the right answer. At this moment, I don't know who said correct and who answered it wrong. But at the end of the activity, I can see the names and the score all of them have. So I can grade all of this activity, and they are so involved that at the end of the 2 hours, more than 10 p.m., the clock, they are still with me. This is my best result because they got very engaged, and then afterwards, after class, after this online meeting, they are able to come back to the same activity, to the same exercises, and do it again by themselves, and using their own pace at the time that's more convenient for any of them. So it's something very nice for them to learn much more than when I'm just talking. So this is what I planned to talk today. I want to tell you that I'm learning a lot from you, and here is my email. I'm gonna be more than happy to share other contents with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Aline.
That's lovely. I have to talk to you because I'm going to take a class on gamification, and I think it's going to really, really energize the way I do a lot of my teaching. So I'm excited to see you're doing Socrative. I don't use Socrative as much anymore because students really like Kahoot, which does a similar thing, and Mentimeter is quite popular in our faculty, so we use those two. But I really like the way I saw the way you used it more than just you use it as like a formative way of assessing, so then you get some feedback to see where they are, and then you know how to correct it or add the gaps, which is great.
Yes, I used Kahoot in the past, but I think Socrative is much easier for what I need during the class, because I can see all the details and the information, and I can hold the students together. I can keep them with me during all the time. It's nice.
Yeah, it's lovely, and the immediate feedback that you're getting. That's great.
And you know, yesterday I tried something different, because while they are responding and they are answering the question, they have to just think about it a little bit. Most of the times I give them 2 minutes or more. And I was getting lonely during this period of time. And then I had the idea to ask them what are their best songs. And I just put them all in a playlist. And while they are solving the exercises and I am waiting 2 minutes, I play one song. So they feel very in the sense of the community. They feel represented. They feel that we are touched at some point. So this is a very sensitive thing for me, is to humanize the process, to show them that we are here, right?
That's wonderful. That's definitely a great humanizing tip for all of us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
So, thank you very much. Now we have a few items quickly before finishing our presentation on our side. It is about exams. I don't know if you have exams already had exams since the crisis started in November.
Really, I think Professor Márcio wants to expose.
Yes, Márcio, yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to be very brief because, I guess we've been on for about an hour and a half. So, first of all, Professor Aurelian, thank you very much to invite us.
You're welcome.
Thank you, all the colleagues. Thank you, all the colleagues, and I hope we can go to The Hague by the end of the year, right, Loretta? And we can meet all of you in person. Well, before I start, just to say to Professor Andrea that I went to Slovenia, to Ljubljana, and it's a lovely place, right? I've been there 4 years ago, and I really enjoyed the city. Very nice. Okay, so here I've been teaching constitutional law and comparative constitutional law and public policies, because I work in the state government regulating public policies. And then I do not only have this academic graduation, but also a formal experience in public policy. So I've been learning a lot to what you have said during these 2 hours that we've been meeting each other. But I'm going to be very stick to my point here. I've been teaching to undergraduates. I have one undergraduate class now, but mainly during this semester at No Elder, I've been teaching for masters and PhD students. So, which is a very different class. I have 11 students in my PhD class. And, well, a PhD class is a class in which all the students, most of them have professional activities, and they have a very strong background. So it is dependent mostly in reading. So we have to read a lot, and in order to have a discussion, a very strong and very, how can I say, a very deep discussion in one specific topic. So what I've been doing to my students, to my especially my PhD students, well, I had to change the bibliography that I was preparing for this semester, because since we are distant from each other, I cannot use the same books, I cannot use the same texts that I was planning to in the beginning of the semester. So what I've been doing is basically this. They have a reading. Normally one class lasts for about 3 hours, and we have a break in between those 3 hours. We have 1.5 hours, then a small break, and then 1.5 hours. In the first 1.5 hours, what I've been doing is I send the students a text to be read, to be prepared for the next week, and then they have to read the text, and I make some I just specify some topics that we're going to argue, that we're going to discuss about. And the day before class, one day before the class, I select one of my students to make the bigger presentation, just one day before. So everybody has to be prepared for the class, because they don't know who is going to be selected. And I select one student, and he makes his presentation. And then during the class, I select another one to make some comments, and then I open for all the students to talk. And then I just make specific questions to all the students, and I hear them all. And then by the half hour of the class, I summarize everything and talk to them, present the arguments, especially because since we study comparative in economics and policies and international and constitutional law, we have a lot of topics to present and to discuss. So it has been a very interactive class. I don't have problems with the students in what regards to talking, to conversation, because they have to be prepared for the class, otherwise they won't be there. So basically what I did is this. I give the text, one or two, they read for the following week, and one day before the class, I select one student to present, and during the class, one of the students is going to make the basic comments, and then I open to all of them to participate. It's been very, very interesting, and we have this WhatsApp group during the week. I talk to them through the WhatsApp group, and it's basically it's what we have been doing in the last 6 classes that we have had so far. And what is interesting is that since I supervise theses and dissertations, that is the most, I guess, in my opinion, it's the worst problem that I have, because to have this meeting with your student is, when you're talking about thesis or talking about dissertation, this meeting with the student is very, very important. Since we are distant nowadays, the only way we can do it is through telephone, is through Skype. So that's basically, I have been meeting individually with my students through Skype, basically, and talk to them by phone and by WhatsApp messages. So they send me what they have been reading so far. I read what they have been reading, and then I call them, or we just start a meeting through Skype and talk about it. That's what we've been doing with the supervision, okay? But in what regards to the undergraduate classes, I have been using most of what Lorena has said, and also Andre. Since we use the same platform, we use the Microsoft Teams, okay? Yeah. So I'm just summarizing here. That's basically it. And thank you all for this opportunity, okay?
Sure. Marcio, I find it very interesting your approach with presenting a document, giving one student the chance to comment, and then giving the other, opening it up for like a broader audience, because that creates more discussion most likely than just the initial document. So actually, that's very interesting for me, and I might try it out in my tutorials just to see how it works. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Lorena, I wanted to make a suggestion if possible. So all the discussions are very, very interesting, but I think on our side, perhaps we were over-ambitious with the agenda items, because we still wanted to talk about exams and external relations. So I was wondering if it would be all right on your side to cut the meeting here and maybe have a follow-up meeting, if you'd be open to it, to talk about the topic of exams and external relations. Because Aureliana informed me that you have not had your exams yet in this context, so maybe that might also be of interest to you, and we would be more than happy to have that conversation at a time when it's convenient for everyone. Would that be agreeable?
Perfect. That is okay. I think it's almost 2 here, and we have to teach in the afternoon, because at the Wilder we have an integral program. So with classes in the morning, in the afternoon, it's okay. And we have one paper already given to the students in the resemblance of a test. But we are in the beginning of our academical semester, so of course it will be very nice, and we'll be honored to have a second meeting with all the professors, Professor Alini, Professor André, Professor Marcio, to discuss about those items. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Briefly though, so Tamara wanted to share her screen to show whiteboard, but if you all have classes as two, I'm not sure how that is going to function. But Tamara, could you do it briefly, or would you like
it's really fast if people want to see what it can do.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so I'm at the whiteboard here, and I'm showing it right now, so it'll come up in just a second, and I'll show you the functionality of it really quickly. So everybody should now be seeing the screen.
Yeah, yes. We see it.
Okay, so what I've done here, just so you know, I've used the various tools that you get when you press the plus sign. When you press the plus sign, you can add any type of document that's listed, PowerPoint, Word, PDF. I've added one on this side, you see it. I'm using my pin with it, so you don't have to use these things except to choose colors. If you have a pin and a surface and a touch tone screen, you can use it just like that. What it does for you is it puts in sticky notes. So you do note. When you do note, a sticky note appears. You can move the sticky note anywhere you want. You can make it bigger. You can do whatever you want. My PowerPoint, I brought it in as a huge document with all of the pieces to it, but you can bring it in as only one of them if you want to, if you just want to use one for the whole document. The most important thing that I thought would be useful for Andre would be to put everybody's image on here. So take an image from everybody on your team, put it on here, and then sort of say what everybody's working on. And then you have like a visualization of what the team is doing at any time. And then you yourself as the professor might come in and put your document in like this. This is just a document I threw up there really fast, but it could be, for example, something that you're going to use inside that you found for your research. You can ask people to read it. You can put a note on there, a sticky note, and say to them, I would really like for you guys to take a look at this. Tell me what you think, and the sticky note will be there for everybody to see. And then when they come on, they'll be able to do whatever you've asked them to do on the sticky note. So it gives you a lot of functionality, and I find it to be super useful. Like I told you, there's other stuff, and I put it into your into the chat box that are very similar, like Mural or Miro. They do the same thing. They just add like their own templates for you there. So there's templates also here on Microsoft. So they give you some ideas, like if you want to do a Kanban or brainstorming or something like that, they already have it set up for you. So it's got a lot of functionality.
Amazing.
Thank
They
you
left
so
part
much,
to
Sandra.
whiteboard.
No worries.
Really.
The last
Wonderful.
person,
Okay.
okay, sorry. The last person who spoke, I do have an idea for what to do with your thesis, students, because I'm also doing it. There's something called Screencast-O-Matic, but it's also available in PowerPoint if you use PowerPoint. You take a picture of yourself. It basically records whatever you're doing on your screen. So open up your student's document, start recording, and then walk through the document, mark it up, and talk as you're going along, or comment as you're going along. And it records everything, and then it makes it into an MP4 file, and you can share it. So if you're in Screencast-O-Matic, it'll give you a link. If you're in PowerPoint, it'll make an MP4, and you can do whatever you want with it. I often just put it on YouTube, make it into a video, and then I give it to my student. So it's another way to show exactly what you want them to do to the document. And you can still have your phone call with them, but at least they see you walking all the way through the document and giving them comments on all the parts where they really need to do some work.
Yeah, just picking up on that.
Program, Esther. What is the
So I
program again?
put it into the chat. It's called Screencast-O-Matic. That's one.
Okay.
Or PowerPoint works just fine. PowerPoint has a record screen feature.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Professor Márcio, also on that, on the feedback of the thesis, it's not elaborate as Tamara just mentioned, which seems very very nice. But what I have done is using the track changes from Word, making my comments, highlighting it, and when I have the meeting with my supervisees, I share my screen. So we go together, and then after the meeting, everything that we have discussed has been typed in addition. So the student has a complete file with my comments, what we have decided during the meeting. So everything then is registered. So afterwards, we both can check. And also in Teams, if you share the file, we also can change together this file. So it's also a way in Teams of using and facilitating the feedback. And it has worked very well for the bachelor thesis so far. So that's, might be useful.
Thank you so much, Sandra. As my colleagues mentioned, there are different ways to kind of track changes in a document and have with students discussions about how it changes. The track change function also works very well in assignments, for example, also in some exams, because they see exactly what your comment is and where you want them to make the change. So it's a simple, approachable way to do it. But there's also obviously value in Tamara's suggestion to film yourselves going through it, because that way they also have the visual content probably staying with them.
More dynamic as well. Yeah.
Although in Teams you can also record meetings, so that can also be helpful for the student. Lorena, thank you so much for everything. It was a pleasure meeting you and meeting all of your colleagues. We hope that this exchange was useful for you, and we really look forward to a follow-up discussion to share more about exams and external relations.
I'm the one to thank. Thank you, firstly, the Hague University. Thank you very much, Professor Andrea, Professor Tamara, Professor Aleph, Professor Sandra, Professor Aurelian, especially, and thank you, Professor Aurelian. I'd like to thank the Hague University and Aurelian personally, because Professor Aurelian maintained the Hague debate competition, and that was a big motivation here at Don Wilder. We are practicing a lot. Students are very motivated, so congratulations for maintaining the competition, for keeping this goal in the student's life in times of isolation. You are really an example and role model here of all the competitions of the world, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you all in a second meeting. It was really fruitful. We are really thankful. Lots of hints and tips and lots of exchanging knowledge. Thank you very much. I hope our knowledge also contributed to you in certain ways. Please do not hesitate in contacting us for other other meetings, for other personal contacts, we are at your disposal. So thank you so much and have a great night at The Hague.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
Soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Unity. Faut comparative. Non, je sais pas. Whew. Debrief.